to episode
9.
9. Nice. A little break, but not quite as long as the last one we took.
I just feel like we're going to keep saying that.
I know.
Until we get
can't
more.
make excuses.
Can't do it.
We need more pressure.
We do need more pressure, which leads us into our topic of episode 9, pressure. What a shocker.
Yeah. I like this topic because I think it's kind of wide sweeping and it's different for everybody. Like we had a hard time even defining what we thought pressure was.
Yeah, I think it means something for everybody. Like it means something different for everybody.
Yeah.
But you said specifically internal and external, correct?
Yeah. So I think just looking at the two, like how many things do you experience that are really internal pressures that you're like putting out there into the world yourself, or and how many things are just genuinely someone else's expectations, and what is your role or responsibility to try and accommodate those?
I feel like we're going to have very different answers out of the gate.
Yeah, we are. Well, I left myself a note here. Like I basically have an entire sheet of paper here to just capture one thought.
Okay.
For myself.
Yes. And I have
no papers.
No paper in front of me.
But we have wine. We have some.
do.
Yeah, we have some
What are we drinking
Chateau
today?
Saint Michel.
Indian Wells, I remember this wine specifically because it was our house wine when I worked at Sullivan Steakhouse
Nice.
in Seattle. And funnily enough, is funnily a word?
I don't think so, but even if it is, you shouldn't use it.
Funnily enough, I was thinking about what time in my life I felt the most pressure. Mm-hmm. And I think that job was
Oh, yeah, I bet that for you
one
would
of
be.
it.
Well, because you were doing like, what was your day-to-day role?
I was in charge of all in-house cash flow and finances.
Oh, yeah, done. Right there, out.
Yep. And employees tip outs, and there's a lot of math involved. There's a lot of punctuality involved, a lot of like daily and weekly hard, fast deadlines.
Yeah.
It was
and it's not that I don't think you can do it. I think it goes against really everything that you want to do in life.
I hated it, but I made myself do it and do it as well as I could because I knew I was not the right person for the job.
Did you just hate life at that stage?
I did, but I loved my manager at the time, so we had fun.
Anne.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we had a good time. Technically, I feel like I was promoted just because she wanted to hang out with me, and you couldn't hang out with.
I would do the same thing.
Well, that's nice. But yeah, it was fun. But I remember even doing like a personality test, and one of the national trainers, whatever, came in, and he was looked at my result, and he was like, "Why?
Why
are you here? Well, this is the opposite of the person that needs this job." I was like, "I know." But I was feeling pressure to get a real job.
And you and Ann are still great friends.
We are. She's awesome.
Okay.
Anyway, continue. I just hijacked the episode right there.
No, I think that's the point, is just to talk about different times in your life when you felt pressure or, and that pressure was, I would say that's on you.
Yeah.
Like you created that pressure. Like there are probably a lot of jobs you could have been doing.
Oh yeah. Well, and it was the first time I was in like a corporate environment that, they want everything done a certain way. You kind of have to drink the Kool-Aid and get involved to work as much as their employees do. And I learned a lot, and I really did enjoy my time there, but I felt pressure to kind of have a backup for the music thing. And I was like, well, I can't just sing. And, you're in your 20s and you think you need to have a real job or do a real thing. And
I think that's the point of pressure is like when I felt the most pressure was when we probably shouldn't. I know people that are older are always like, oh, kids these days don't, they're 25 before they have to make a single decision. It's like, let's be honest. Like, how many people in their 30s know what they want to be doing and feel totally satisfied with the decisions they've made, or in their 40s, or people in general? Mm-hmm. I just think it's kind of bullshit that parents like pretend like we know what's going on all the time.
Right.
And our parents would be like, oh, you got to figure it out. I'm like, I spend some time around, maybe not my mom specifically. Mom, if you're listening, that's not talking about you. But no, I think you spend some time around your parents, and it's like we all have that point in our lives when we realize like, oh man, they're kind of just like we are, just trying to figure it out. And their opinions are rooted in kind of some ways that might be a little dated. Mm-hmm.
I think that I started to realize that around 18, but then that's also the time where you think you know everything.
Yeah.
So I think it's like,
bad combo.
It's a bad combo where you start to realize like, oh, just because someone's an adult doesn't mean that they know everything. But then if you see that enough times, like, well, I must know everything.
Yeah. And just because they don't necessarily know what to do, it doesn't make them bad people or that their intentions aren't good. I think that's what you lose as a teenager. It's like everyone's trying to screw you over.
Yeah.
If they're not going along with your flow.
When I think
I'm not looking forward to those years.
Oh, and with the boys, no.
No, that's going to be a tough
I think you're going to have
phase.
very little patience for most of teenage behaviors.
Yeah.
Besides the fun stuff that you guys will go do that'll give me heart attacks.
Well, we'll see.
Motorcycles and bike
Thankfully,
jumps.
we've got a lot of diapers and a whole lot of teeth to lose before we get to that point.
True.
Yeah. So when it comes to pressure, like, what do you think does pressure motivate you at all? Like, do you feel like, I feel like you talk a lot about the pressure to have achieved something in music, particularly like by a certain age, or I don't know if that's just vanity or.
It depends on the situation. I really enjoy pressure. Like if I have, a show that I'm nervous about, like when I opened for, I know this is going to date me, but when I opened for Colby Calais and it was my first big show with like a major label artist. And it's pressure like that. I was nervous, I was excited, and I felt like the importance of the show. But in those situations, I love it. I use it. It's like I'm competitive with myself, and that pressure doesn't bother me. I think women in general get a lot of pressure still to get married, have kids versus career. And I felt that even in my 20s, because we didn't get married till I was 30, 31? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, so I kind of pivoted a little bit, but the pressure when it comes down to performing, I love the pressure that I put on myself where like that I was supposed to achieve X at X. That's the kind of pressure that gets under my skin. And then when I peel it back, I'm like, who's even saying this?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like one of those is healthy. Although I don't seek out the same, at least not the same way you do, create pressure. Like I would not want to walk out in front of everyone and say, hey, the next hour and a half is absolutely contingent on me keeping these people entertained and not making mistakes and trusting other people behind me and beside me not to make mistakes. Like,
I love it.
I like that in work because it feels like a marathon, right? We can fall and we can help each other up and we can make corrections and build on like the little mistakes, but you like putting yourself in sprints. It's like if you fall, well, then you might as well just turn around and walk the other direction because it just all kind of falls in on itself.
I have one, when you were talking about that, usually when I make mistakes, I'm like, and I can kind of roll with it. There was one time where I was completely panicked on stage, and it was a triple door show. I think it was a Christmas show. No, I know it was a Christmas show. And I was like, I'm just going to end it, me and the piano. And I did, what is that? Oh, Holy Night.
Oh, yeah.
And I lost.
I was there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was there, but
yes.
I
did you know?
Don't know what you're about. I don't know the mistake that you're about to reference.
I was in the middle of the song and I looked up and totally lost my place in the page. So I didn't know what chord to play next because I was going off a chord chart. I didn't know where I was. I was going like a turnaround part of the song. And it felt like forever. I was panicked. I was like, I don't know what to do right now. And that's never happened to me before, ever. And I definitely, it was one of those moments where it was like cold sweats. And I think I kind of just like made up a chord and then kind of did a ooh thing until I could find my place again. But it was the first like
I guess
deer in headlights
you
moment.
don't have any drums or anyone else to carry it for a minute or you could fall out and catch up.
Totally. Yeah. It's just silent if I stop, right? It's just quiet.
So I'll segue on that story just because it's fitting because we're drinking their wine, but Alan Stone, and I get to name drop too, so it's another great story. But Alan Stone was playing at Chateau Ste. Michelle, and it was rainy, and like the mood was kind of soggy.
Yeah.
And his shows are always super, like one of the best live shows
upbeat.
you'll ever see.
Right.
And this was one of the, like he sold it out. It was kind of a big show for that stage of his career, and he like finally had everybody in and is singing just like a power ballad, has everybody locked in, and like the wind shifted and it blew the canopy up into the air and like 1,000 gallons of water just flies out over the like entire front quarter of the audience.
No.
Like it was just a wave of water that came off. And in the middle of the song, he stopped and says, "Oh shit." Like as it's piling over everyone and has to stop the show. And he was like, "I had you guys. That was the moment. Like you were all here with me. I was just about to go into the main chorus.
Right.
I had you." And then Mother Nature stepped in, but it just like doused, and it was cold. It was just one of those times. Of course, he put on a hell of a show, and he made the whole thing funny. And it's one of my most memorable moments of ever being at a concert. But
did he finish the song?
I don't think he went back into the song.
I think it'd be too hard.
Yeah,
I think
I think he just moved on.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was one of my favorite moments where obviously it wasn't necessarily his fault, but
that's one of my favorite things to tease you with is the pressure of being on stage.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make any sense because you are essentially on stage in your job all the time.
Yeah, but again, it feels like a marathon to me.
Yeah.
Like no one's like, I mean, there's some people that are watching every step and every word and notice silence and comment on things like that. That definitely happens. But for the most part, I know that just kind of comes with the territory a little bit. But I didn't like, even in football and like the biggest moments, and I didn't, I only played high school football, but I definitely had a couple of really, really great moments. And I was, I just told this story like 2 days ago to my grandma. She was like, "Man, he'd act like he didn't even know who you were. He'd just walk in, walk out, wouldn't say anything, didn't even know, wouldn't say much at all." I was like, just like anything, it was, if I was extremely excited or disappointed, there was very little difference between.
I don't get how you do that. See, I feel pressure to like, not personality match, but when people talk to me, I want them to feel good. I want them to feel okay. So even if it's not quite funny, I'll try to like.
Yeah, you give out free laughs.
Oh yeah,
you pass them out like it's candy.
I do. I just want everyone to.
No, not me.
Oh, I know. It makes me very uncomfortable because I feel the pressure to like make situations okay.
See, I'll give like a waiter the benefit of the doubt, or a restaurant. If I get a bad meal at a restaurant, like I will not, unless it's really terrible service and the restaurant like supports that for whatever reason, I'll say something. But like a bad meal happens, right?
Yeah.
You, like those kind of things, I don't get too worked up over. But I think if somebody's really trying to get my attention or really trying to be funny, it better be funny.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Or you get nothing.
It's just, I feel like the most inexpressive person in the world married the most expressive person.
Well, maybe that's why we have fun together. We're always confused. Always a little uncomfortable.
It's a little uncomfortable. Oh, man. Anyways, so sports pressure you handled fine when you played, right?
I think so.
I think that's the kind of pressure that what I like from the stage and what I liked about sports. That's the kind of pressure that you kind of grab and run with, I feel like.
Yeah, I think like from a sports perspective, it's the same thing. It's a ton of preparation. I feel like if you have prepared and know what you're supposed to do and what your roles are, I think you'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously sometimes getting your bell rung just sucks, but that's like, you can't plan for that. So it happens, and that just feels like part of it. I remember like my fondest memory of actually feeling pressure in my hometown of Gig Harbor, we share a field with another high school. So it's Gig Harbor High School in Peninsula, and I went to Peninsula, and Gig Harbor had been handing us our asses for a few years. And when that game happens, because we share a field, there'll be, like 5,000-6,000 people at the stadium at once, and there's nowhere for all of those people to be. So they're on the track around the field. They're up in the trees, like all around it, and it's broadcast on the radio. And it was just like, that was a big deal to me. And I'd only started one previous game to the first fishbowl I was in. A friend of mine broke his leg, and I stepped in for him. And so it was one of those times where, I hadn't played very many games yet, and so to be standing in front of that many people. And I remember my coach, knowing me very well, pulled me aside, and he was like, "I know you're fine, but just do this for me." And Levenseller made me stand and just turn around slowly. Like he turned my shoulders like it was like he was spinning me around, just kind of slowly turning me around. He's like, "I just want you to look at everybody and how many people are here. And like, let's just let that be the last time we even worry about how many people are here." And I remember thinking that was a cool moment because he knew me well enough to know that was the only thing that I wasn't quite used to yet. And then, of course, we won. It wasn't necessarily all because of me. I had a decent game, but we were pretty good my junior year, so we handed them their asses a little bit. But that was probably the most pressure I ever felt in like a sports situation.
Okay. Well, I feel like one comment that you get a lot, and people ask me a lot, is how does Jake deal with the 70 million things that are constantly on your plate? And I think when it comes to work and like pursuing your dreams in as fast but also like calculated way as you do, people are like, I don't know how he handles all of that.
I think that's part of the game, though, for me.
Yeah,
like
but you handle an enormous amount of pressure when it comes to work, like more so than anyone else. And again, seemingly unaffected.
Oh, I think sometimes people think I'm either disinterested or it's not, or I don't give people what they're asking for. I think a lot of times people want me to say, actually, what I do is amazing. We have all of this, we have all of that. And like my family, most of them still don't understand like how the pieces fit together or what brands. And I'm not trying to like say here and now that it's this bigger than anything else. It's a lot though. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of companies and a lot of partnerships and a lot of people working together. But it's back to the same like filing cabinet thing. What's the most important thing today? And I try to sift through the next most important thing. It's one of those things where if somebody wants everything that I have to offer and everything that the companies can be, they're going to get this approach. We're bringing along quite a few things that people don't quite yet understand why we're focusing on them or why they're a priority. And that's because they don't fully understand what we're trying to do. And I've brought people in and I've had people, over the years, over and over again, come in and look and a lot of people get excited and then it feels sort of overwhelming and like there isn't a lot of direction. And I think it takes years and years for people to kind of see how the pieces fit together and how it will work together. I'm on that marathon pace. Like I know it's important that we stay moving and that we're moving forward every day, but I also have a pretty good beat on the timing of like our political landscape and when things are going to really line up for our industry. And it wasn't 2 years ago when everyone was peaking. Like it's coming, but we want to make sure the pieces are lined up for that time. And like, not to make this about work, but like, that's why I don't feel a lot of the pressure. Like everyone's looking at I haven't looked at the share price in 2 months because I've business to run. I have multiple businesses to run. And if everyone's dancing, I'm not worried about, what color shoes someone's wearing. Like that's just not a priority to me right now. I care about the shareholders. I want to bring value to them, but long term, I am doing exactly that. And I don't feel a ton of pressure on that. I get messages from people, as you know, when people are beating me up on the message boards saying, hey, man, one person you won't ever have to worry about, being having a lack of confidence is me. And I really don't need that. I appreciate it. But
let me ask you this. Do you feel internal pressure to be successful?
Yes. I think that's that's one of the only times that pressure works on me is if it's applied to myself. I told my mom the other day, I said, complaining at me or bitching at me or telling me I haven't done something or I should have done something gets you almost nowhere with me. But, pointing me in the right direction, asking for help or letting me know something you wish I would have done more of or better at, I'll go after that aggressively. And I understand a lot of that's on me, but I feel like I'm far more motivated by opportunity than I am pressure.
Yeah.
And I think the only time that I really respond well to pressure is pressure I put on myself. But I don't think I'm unfair with it.
Where do you think that comes from?
I know you know the answer because we just spent 4 days with my grandmother telling stories about my family and the not so ceremonious aspects of some of it. But I just think I looked all around me and always, anytime someone made a mistake, I didn't think like, oh, that's my path. That's where I come from. I turned away from that. And it seemed like that happened to me over and over again. Every time my dad went back to jail, I didn't spend a lot of time sitting around like, I can't believe I don't know, I just kind of went, well, I would never want to make somebody feel like this again in my life.
Right.
No one important to me is going to feel this way because of something I've done. And that was the motivation to me, the pressure to succeed and the opportunity not to be in a situation like that, or be the cause of a situation like that is important to me. So I think when people think I'm callous or rough or don't care, I don't think that's the case. I care about the things that I think really, really matter.
Yeah. And kind of piggybacking on that, I see you react to pressure. If someone's presenting you with something and they want you to buy in, you are like the most
in my
resistant.
DNA. Yeah. It's like, nope. No, you're right. I
feel like it's the opposite. You're like, oh, you're pressuring me this. I'm going to go over here and pick apart why I don't think it works.
I mean, I just think once you like peel back basic human responses and advertising and marketing, you look at everything and go, wow, really? If I call now, I can save money. Really? Let me find my phone so I can give you whatever it is you want so that you can help me out. Gosh, these people are wonderful. Like that just does not exist anywhere. Mm-hmm. I mean, almost nowhere. I'm not saying, lose all hope in humanity, but if it's being marketed to you, it's probably not what they're claiming it is.
Yeah.
Except for Suncliff. You should go to suncliffcbd.com and
don't you guys have a new website?
Yeah. Well, it's a new landing page. So the rules around CBD and THC and cannabis products are changing all the time. So we have like merchant services has their own rules. And then of course the states have their own rules. The feds have rules.
Yeah.
The post office has rules. The banks have rules. And so we're constantly having to kind of adjust and shift to accommodate whatever new set of rules are out. So one of the things we had to do was make a landing page for Suncliff that is its own freestanding CBD website so that, and this is all, some of it's related to upcoming deals and things I'm working, and some of it's just some general housekeeping to get information out and content available for people.
This is unrelated.
And I'm trying like hell to get through Facebook's nauseating advertising policies.
Oh my gosh, it takes that's why I needed that woman that called and was like, do you want help with this? Yes.
Even this podcast, because we have an intro video that shows cannabis plants in it, the algorithm shoots it down and says, oh, you can't market this because it's about marijuana, and there's nothing in the content or what we're displaying that should be flagging that, but there's ways around it, but I'm trying to work with them and come up with ads that meet their policies without having to just outright, flog the system.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, this is not totally related, but I think it's a question that you get almost every day. And so I just want to give you an opportunity to address it. All the vaporizers and do you want to wait on that?
No, I'll talk about it because I think it's important.
People are like scared of their vapes here.
Yeah, and some people should be. I'll keep it short because I'm gonna do something specific on this. Like I have something planned as part of a much bigger project that I'm gonna really get into this on. But what it really comes down to is if you buy a vape pen from a licensed store, the likelihood that you're gonna have an issue with it is almost zero. We now have there's a coalition of stores here in Washington that all tested. I think they tested 70 different products from, 25 different manufacturers, and nothing came back with any vitamin E acetate in it. And that's really the issue. At least the core of the issue is that black market pens are being cut with other products to, like you would cut cocaine or add, synthetic drugs to fake Percocet, things like that. Mm-hmm. There's a market for it. And if there's no regulation, there's no one stopping them from doing that. So the pens are being cut with vitamin E oil, and it's not good for you, obviously. Mm-hmm. Causes issues in the lung when it's decarboxylated or brought to temperature. So if you're buying products from a licensed store, you're fine. And we're dealing with that. We were actually just about to launch a pretty significant vape line, as you know, and moved into a new facility to accommodate it. And all of this happens. And I looked at it, and our team was kind of scrambling. And I said, "This is a good opportunity because we don't have to explain ourselves. We're going to be, be launching this product into a market that's really confused right now. And the messaging of our products and our brand are that we are offering a clean, sustainable product that's, cannabis derived only."
Mm-hmm. For those that don't know, there's just been some instances of it come up
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot for our industry, which doesn't need anything right now that would be pointing to it. And it's come down to really a few brands, and they're pretty well-known brands in the space that are, it's because there are Chinese manufacturers that are just selling a cartridge and packaging ready to go. All you do is fill it up with your own oil. And again, if you're in the black market and there's no way to test how much, like your consumers don't know how much oil is or isn't in there, then you can cut it in half with some vitamin E or some other filler, send it out. Nobody's going to know. They're still going to get fairly stoned.
And it causes lung problems.
And it's causing huge problems. And so it's profits. And that's where, you see the industry taking shortcuts because there's a lot of cash floating around.
Yeah. So it should be.
I mean, the real pushback is that it should be federally regulated and legal, and we'd have a lot more studies. We'd know exactly what could and couldn't be done. But right now, this is a great example of, our industry kind of getting marred over what is a small. I mean, 20 people, losing their lives is not it's not nothing. It's definitely significant, but it really has very little to do with our industry specifically. It's an entirely different market that's run parallel.
Yeah,
sold in smoke shops and
Anyways, I just wanted to. I said we made that question a lot, so I just was like, let's tell the people what's going down.
If nothing else, I'll extract a piece of that so I can answer questions on social media like all at once. I try to I keep some notes of all the things that I get regularly. It's that and it there's
CBD questions constantly.
Yeah, the CBD I'm actually going to do the CBD one before I do the vape pen because it's literally seems like a quarter of my life is answering the CBD question. Just what it is, what it does, how it's effective, if it's effective, all that.
Well, let's bring it back to the topic over here now that we had that educational segue.
Okay.
What was the question that I came up with that I was like, write that down so I don't forget it because I forgot it already.
Oh, okay. Well, see, this is where my paper and my
Oh, I remember it. What pressure do you feel like you put on other people?
A lot. I mean, I think people that work for me or with me, they experience a lot of pressure. I have high expectations that people see and do things thoughtfully all the time.
Yes, I know.
And I think sometimes I put so much pressure on folks that it'll actually frazzle them a little bit, and they'll do silly things like, shut off a car in the middle of the street and walk away from it that doesn't have a battery in it when it needed to be backed into the parking lot. That kind of stuff where I'll say, "What were you thinking?" And one of my guys turned to me, he's like, "I wasn't. There's so many things going on. It's this, is that. There's so many things happening at once. There's so many things on our plate. Like I just accidentally forgot that the truck needed to be parked, and I turned it off in the middle of the street." And I said, "Fair enough."
Yeah.
But I think that stuff like that is a result of me, like them trying to keep up with my pace and with kind of the plan.
Well, I've told you this hundreds of times, either if you get mad at me or an employer or something. I'm like, Jake, no one thinks 45 steps in advance like you. Yes, that makes complete sense when you.
I think people do. They just don't do it all the time.
I definitely don't do it a lot.
I try to, like when I enter in the parking lot, I think, okay, when I'm leaving, would it be better to be going out that exit? And I'm going to take a right, but I need to go to the other store, which puts me in the wrong lane. Like I always try to think at least 2 or 3 steps ahead.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Because that's just not as innate to me.
Well, I know that. I think you're getting a lot better. That was one of my biggest concerns about us having children.
Yeah.
Not that you couldn't. It was the amount of prep and the amount of things that, for me, it's stressful when the key doesn't go back on the hook and you never put the key back on the hook. It's little things like that where I was like, wow, we have like a totally different approach on our own. When you throw a child in there who, there's always got to be a pacifier and wipes and all of those things. I thought, I get frustrated over keys. Imagine how frustrated I'll be, with a screaming baby and no pacifier in the diaper bag and, all of those things.
Well, luckily, I feel like Caden's put me through the fire with a lot of those things. So, and I remember my friend Sarah, she was so organized and everything. And I said, I'm really nervous. I'm not going to be able to do that. She says, you forget it one time and you'll never do it again. It's very accurate.
Yeah. And for that, I think my son has done a great job. Oh my gosh. Would you like some more Indian Wells?
Oh, yes, please. Thank you.
So I'm going to spin that back to you. What kind of pressure do you think you put on other people? I'm really, really interested in this answer, by the way, because I have my own opinion.
I'm glad you have an opinion because I don't know what pressure. I think I get frustrated with when people are insecure and don't go after something because of insecurities. I was thinking of like girlfriends. What? No?
See, I think you get frustrated at it. I don't think you apply the pressure. I think you're probably the greatest. Is that a word?
No.
Funnily enough. Is it?
Funnily enough, greatest is not a word.
I think you're like the greatest champion of your friends of anyone I've ever met.
Yeah, because my friends are awesome.
Yeah, but even you're like, she's amazing. You start everything off. She's like super genius. This. She's amazing. I'm like, well, you set the bar so high, it's impossible to hit. But I do think like you take on the pressure or the frustration a lot. Like I think you verbalize it to me nowadays as you see like people not living up to their potential or not doing what you wish they would.
Yeah.
I don't know how much pressure you apply.
I don't really. I don't mind conflict. I feel like I've gotten more comfortable with it over the years, but I just don't like to insert myself and like if I don't know, if I have a problem with somebody, I'm frustrated and upset with them, I will go and work it out with them. But when it comes to like everyday kind of annoyances, I'll let those slide.
Yeah.
All the time.
That's what's weird to me. Like if you have the right to basically write somebody off and never talk to them again, you're more likely to like schedule a coffee with them or go walk around Green Lake and talk it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where if somebody gives me a reason to effectively write them off or they do something that's genuinely shitty, I'll probably just write them off.
Yeah. I don't like having, I feel very, I don't know the word for it, but I get really unsettled when I have frayed relationships in my life. Even if I'm going like separate ways or, a work relationship or something that just didn't work out, I want it to be on good terms. Like I never want to burn bridges. I always want people to feel valued and loved.
See, I was going to say, I don't have frayed relationships. I have ones that are either connected or cut off.
Yeah, that's exactly my point. I have a hard time with the cutoff.
Yeah?
Yeah. I'm fine with it for a period of time. Like if we need space or distance or time, but to leave it like that, it just like unsettles my soul.
Okay.
I don't like it.
Well, mine does pretty good with it.
Yeah, I'm aware.
I think it's more, it's a defense mechanism from.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just the way things were.
I think I was like that when I was dating.
Yeah.
If a guy,
you would.
If a guy seemed even the tiniest bit disinterested, either I'd be like, okay. And I'd cut my losses and they'd be like, no, I just didn't text you back that one time. I was like, oh, well, I don't care. I've already moved on. Or if I just knew that a dating relationship was going to go somewhere, that's where I could cut
really
that
good
off.
point.
Yeah.
I have dated and redated all, the same 10 girls on.
That's weird. That's like that's flip-flopped.
I know.
That is crazy.
I never really felt like I didn't have relationships where I felt like burned by anyone. It's usually, it was kind of like went different directions, but we're cool with each other and then would resurface.
I'd always get annoyed.
Yeah.
I'd be like, I don't want to sit at home with you every night and like talk about our feelings. Like, let's go do something. Come along. If you can't keep up, I can't deal.
Yeah, you were cold.
I was.
That's all right. It's a lot of pressure dating you.
It's a lot of pressure. It's not a lot of pressure. It's just keep up or get out of the way.
Okay, well,
not get out of the way.
Noted.
I didn't want to waste my time.
Fair enough.
Being single I enjoyed it.
It is fun.
Yeah, I didn't need any.
I can't wait.
Being married to you is obviously way more fun, but I just never minded being single, even though I did feel pressure.
Yeah.
A lot of like family friends and stuff that were just kind of like, when are you ever going to settle down? And be like, not now.
It's weird. Like I hope to stay out of those patterns when we get older, when we have kids and doing things of just making those assumptions. It's like, where are you going to go to school? What are you going to be in your late teens? And then it's when are you going to get married? Then when you do get married is when are you going to have kids?
And then
you
have a kid. It's like, when are you going to have another one?
It's like, why don't we just fast forward to the end of this script? I'm 62. I've got, 3 kids and, I'll get there. I hate that shit.
I do too. I do too. Especially when it comes to like,
and I'm a guy. I can't imagine like for you.
Yeah. And I'm more traditional in that sense than I think people would know, where I did think someday, yeah, I would like to be married and have kids, but it was a definite like, but not now. I wanted to make sure that I could be on my own first. But yeah, but the pressure I still felt, especially like as I was getting towards my 30s and people were like everyone was kind of coupled up and people were kind of starting to settle down. And I remember getting so pissed off because I wanted to go to a Brian McKnight concert. And it was the first time I couldn't find a single person to go to something fun with me last minute. Because it was like everybody had stuff.
It was like on a Wednesday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And usually I'd be like, no matter what, I could call somebody, find somebody who was free. And I was like, oh my gosh, is this how my life's going to be?
But that's also kind of a niche artist. Niche?
No, but there's people that wanted to go but couldn't.
Gotcha.
And it was kind of a slap in the face to me because I was like, okay, I feel like if I and don't find somebody, I'm just going to be going to stuff on my own because everybody else is too routined or, kind of just like we are now, boring and routined. Yeah. And like, I understand that.
Yeah.
I understand that now, but that I felt a lot of pressure, but I was more mad about it because I didn't want that like spontaneity and kind of fun to die.
And then
it died. And I'm just kidding.
Actually, I showed up shortly after and we, had a lot of nights that started at midnight and lasted till 3 a.m. listening to music videos.
Mm-hmm. Or going to concerts.
Went to a lot of shows.
Yeah, it was fun.
So let's finish this up with a question. What is one thing that you feel pressure on right now that you still think you'll feel pressure from in 5 years? Like just for reference, if I look back to myself in my early 30s and I think about like the businesses and like trying to make payroll or make a certain thing. And like, I thought the world was falling apart a couple of times. And I look back on those and I think, oh, that was cute. I should have picked up the phone and called so-and-so, or I was only one phone call away from answering it. And now things require a board, lawyers, 30 phone calls and multiple flights to different countries to solve a problem. And like those don't seem to me today as big a problems as just payroll was even, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So what's something that in 5 years you think is a pressure that you feel now that would still be there?
I think juggling being a mom and a career. That's something I've really like been struggling with like deep down of just that I can't tell whether I'm putting the pressure on myself or whether it's just that like traditional societal, like you're the mom and biologically, when it's a baby, it is on me and I do have to sacrifice my life for a period of time to like take care of this child.
A long period of time.
Yes. So I feel pressure to like do that really well, but then also do my career really fast and bounce back body wise and kind of get back to where I want to be. And that's been really tough for me because you just don't have the same freedom. And I expect to be operating on the same level that I was before our kid was born. And now I'm like, oh, I can't right now. And I think in 5 years it's going to be the same, but it's going to be different challenges that come up. Yeah.
That's a good answer. My answer to that same question is probably, I think I put pressure on myself to, like when I decide to paint a room, I try to see if I can do it in 2 hours. Like when we did the new office, I looked at it and thought, I'm going to do this in less than 1 day. I want this place to be unrecognizable at the end of the day.
I can't believe, I don't know how you do this.
Well, it's like even the day before we had 4 or 5 people at the place and everyone went, oh, let's leave this giant wall of cinder blocks here because who the hell wants to move those? I came in the next morning and I started like, we can just paint over all these bricks that are piled up in the corner and no one will even know that it's not just part of the wall. And I just looked at it and thought, man, but that's tacky. We're going to do all of this. And I literally thought, no one knew, but I was like, I'm going to put down carpet today too. And after we paint the floors, I'm going to put down carpet. And that's probably going to be more time for me cutting around that cinder block than it is to just take them all out.
Move them out.
And so I, brought in a tray and just loaded out hundreds of blocks of cinder out of this room. Yeah, and like no one... A lot of people I have to remind everyone, remember all the cinder blocks that were there? Like most people don't even notice. But like when I set a goal to do something, I like to see how fast and how much pressure.
Come hell or high water, you get it done.
And I don't think that'll change. I appreciate people. I remember your dad first coming over here, and like people that are watching on video have seen a lot of this transformation. This was just empty and bare. And I moved in on the 25th. I moved in on Christmas is when I got the keys to this place. And he helped me load in like one couch into the basement. It was the only thing that was down here. And by New Year's, we threw a New Year's party here at the house.
I forgot about that.
I had this bar built. And we had the whole place set up, darts, the whole thing. And it was like already an awesome place. And your dad walked in and just stopped, looked around. He was like, I was here like 2 days ago, and this was just a barren wasteland. And that's one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
And so I don't think I'll ever stop putting pressure on myself. And so I think anyone that knows that about me has to understand how many things I've got going on at work and how many things I'm strategically trying to pull along. And I think I'll always do that. Probably be more geared around the boys and sports and.
Well, and I fully support that pressure because I get to reap all the benefits of all the stuff that you do around the house.
Awesome. Okay, pressure's on.
So pressure's on to keep being awesome at that.
Cool. Well, I think we're at 42 minutes. It's a good place to transition out.
Should we have like an applicable thing for the listeners, like something to leave with to think about?
If you've got something applicable for them.
I think start thinking through when and where you feel pressure, and if it's pressure from yourself or pressure from external things that don't need to be there.
Or like what that means to you. If you just recognize those two things, am I creating this or is somebody else? Then once you have that answer, you can ask yourself, and why?
Yeah.
Right? And does it matter? Because there's a lot of times like people put pressure on each other. I think family members can really put like a lot of loving, kind pressure and hope and want for things. But as soon as you can kind of pull it back a little bit and say, is this even about me?
Right.
I don't know if that's as
I think
profound as it seems to me, but I definitely think that just identifying it is a great first step.
I agree. So I think that's just something to think about and moral of the story is the thing that you feel the most pressured about, people probably don't care that much.
Right.
So.
And I think I want to give a shout out to a business that we put a lot of pressure on someone for a lot of years to do something around their sense of fashion and style. And even it kind of like alluded to in some of the podcasts that like they have all the tools, the timing, like everything about it.
Is like insane.
And the only person in their way is kind of their own willingness to just jump in and try it. And so Jess, the company is called Shop
Aisling.
Yeah. And it's like AISLING. And it's a foreign word.
That.
But yeah, verify it. Like the Instagram is awesome. Like she's all like came in, jumped on, and it's like vintage clothes for kids, like Oshkosh bagosh overalls and like vintage leather jackets. We went and checked her out at the farmer's market.
So
and like
cute.
It's kind of a shameless plug, but it's also anyone that has kids, like this stuff is amazing. And it's somebody who is kind of a part of our collective family and someone who listens and participates. And we had always kind of been alluding around some of like, they're one of the people that kept coming up of like, man, that's frustrating because they would be so good at it. And the fact that it's coming together as fast as it is.
I love it.
Yeah. And the growth has been great.
Makes me pumped. It is Shop Aisling, AISLING.
All right, go check it out, guys, and we will be back hopefully next week.
All right.
Take care. Bye. Oh, I copied your bye. Bye. Bye.